Welcome to the Femsplainers. I'm Christina Hoff-Summers.
And I'm Danielle Crittenden, and Merry Christmas, everybody who's celebrating it. We're Jewish, so of course we're working on Christmas morning.
Oh, yep. Going to Chinese restaurants.
Actually, that was last night. Well, actually, we recorded that. We're obviously not recording this on Christmas morning, but it is our, it's our holiday special. It's our last
program
for the season until January. We're sitting here. You've decided your new holiday drink is Dubonnet.
I'm not proud of that.
Why?
People make fun of it.
It's very 70s.
It's Austin Powers had Dubonnet.
Well, it's something that the reason you should say why you're having it is because it means we can keep it in the studio without it going off like a bottle of wine or champagne. It's really for economic reasons.
Practical.
And I brought a hot toddy, half of which spilled in the car on the way here. And if your program notes, if there's a wonderful scent of cloves and allspice in this,
I'm not going to drink it. I just want to get a sense of it.
Okay, but that's what we're having. So we're joining you on Christmas morning.
That is so alcoholic. That is actually...
You say that as if it's a criticism.
It's just... I'm not going to drink it if you give me one.
All right. Well, for our special holiday edition, we got a lot to say about Christmas. We just want to do a fast postmortem on the podcast we did with Jordan Peterson, which was recorded before a live audience here at American Enterprise Institute. And because it was live, we didn't get to do our sort of post-party chit-chat and
download, what do we think?
What do we think? So what do you think? How did it go?
I thought he was wonderful, and it was a different side of him. We saw him in the evening too for dinner, and he seems sometimes just so intense, and so it was a lighter side of him. And
right. Well, I love that we got him to talk about women. I love that we got him to imitate a toddler, and then
talk about porn.
We talk about porn, and then we had to reveal, or I had to reveal
your
my
predilections,
porn. But
that's on tape.
Williams-Sonoma stores.
I'm thinking more than Williams-Sonoma stores. I like real estate displays. You mean
like Architectural Digest or Elle Decor?
I could look for hours.
Yeah, same. I can actually go through real estate listings and just look at them.
I can go to Zillow.com and look up houses. And sometimes, I do have house envy, but sometimes I'm shocked at how people with fantastically expensive houses and how badly decorated they are.
Oh, it's relentlessly the worst taste.
It's just unbelievable. If you have all that money, can't you get somebody who has good taste, who helps you?
I remember hearing a routine. Do you remember Spalding Gray, who committed suicide? He was once looking for a house, I think probably in East Hampton, but before it was as luxe as it is now. And he realized that he and the realtor had just become totally chummy just looking at houses. And he realized this had become problematic because he enjoyed the experience of looking at houses and peering in people's lives more than actually buying a house.
Yeah.
Which I totally understand. Okay, but to go back to Jordan Peterson. So I thought one of the interesting reactions is he was quite defensive about how this following of young men, because as he pointed out, and as we agreed after reading the book, if you just read the book, I haven't watched a lot of his videos, the advice is sensible, it's entertaining, it could totally apply to men as women, and yet young men just seem to have glommed onto him. Did you come away after meeting him with any sense of why that was? I had some thoughts, but what are your thoughts?
I don't know that meeting him helped me understand that phenomenon. Hearing him speak helped me understand. First of all, and I talked about this, I was on this podcast for 2 days, for hours. It was
with Robert Reich, right?
With Robert Reich.
You were like trapped in the podcast.
I was. It was an inquisition. And he said he's going to run the whole thing. We'll see. But we talked a lot about Jordan Peterson, and he pointed out that he's just a great lecturer,
right? Without
notes. And he goes, but he also brings a lot of emotion and drama. He talks about big themes in human life,
Right.
life and death issues. And I think a lot of young men need, there to be high stakes and a sense of adventure and
almost
challenges.
also purpose.
Well, he's all about purpose.
Right.
Now, and
making your bed and getting out of bed and having a schedule and
you
with a lot
build
of
towards
depressives.
goals, and you have to start by
Right.
taking responsibility and just get yourself organized. Organization is a big problem. And when I wrote my book on the war on boys, just teaching a young man to be organized,
Right.
if parents would do that and teachers would reinforce it, it's very important. And he understands that. So he's someone they can listen to. I mean, that's half the battle. So I've just been listening to some female theologists and saying somewhat the same things, but he says it differently. He says a way in which young men can hear.
There's great certainty to him.
Yes, I think.
Like he just, some of the things he said, I can't remember. I'll not be able to quote it, but what he said about scent and the importance of scent to attraction.
Yeah.
Like RH something wasn't Restoration Hardware speaking.
Oh.
No, there was
catalogs.
like,
I'm tired of their catalogs. They send these huge catalogs.
Okay.
I throw them away.
Okay, but
I just
so
want
he
that
had
on the
a whole
record.
theory, and I don't, it's probably true, but he asserts it with such certainty that you think, okay, it must be true. So
Yeah,
I think
you
there's
must
a
be
kind
true. That's
of-
one of those studies I think might not survive the replication crisis. We'll see.
But he also, one of the things I also took away from his book, which we didn't, there were so many things we didn't get into, but to go to the importance of making your bed and things, he said, one of the things to do if you have depression, one of the things that can sort of be transformative, it's a very simple thing. You just get up at the same time every day, preferably before noon, but you just make it a habit to get up at 7, 8, 9, whatever. And you
No, I
start
would
your
find
day.
that depressing.
Yeah. Maybe you're a quiet depressive.
No. I think my friend analyzed me. She's a psychiatrist. Everybody's got a diagnosis. You just have to be with Sally for a while. And she said that I was a manic depressive, but only with the exuberance and the highs, never the lows. I said, is that a bad thing? And she said, yes. But
That means you're
happy.
manically happy.
Up, yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
I know.
Zoe.
It irritated her.
Zoe, who is here with us in the studio. Zoe, we had a couple of listener comments to Jordan Peterson, and we could hear those, and then we can move on to start Christmas.
How and to have a gender-neutral Christmas. We have tips.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I have a younger brother who is an engineering student who does not like to be involved in politics in really any way. But my mom mentioned that Jordan Peterson was going to be appearing on the Femsplainers, and he goes, oh, I listen to Jordan Peterson all the time.
Yeah.
And my mom would never guess. And it makes sense to me. I think he gets through to, because my brother is a sophomore in college, he gets through to the scientific, data-driven
Right.
generation.
Right.
That's what I think. That's what clicks.
The certainty backed up by
He's got science.
science, right?
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, one particular listener named Catherine thought that it was particularly wonderful that you all color coordinated your outfits.
That's so true.
That they were on point.
We were both black and white. And you know what we can't tell people is we often buy the same clothes.
We do. We both have the dress you were wearing.
I was going to say that. I thought.
Did you see? You saw it at the
I
Christmas
saw
party.
Christina wear that at the Christmas party.
So we don't do a clothes swap. But we have to, in advance of any time we're getting together, especially
Everything.
with other people.
We have
have
the
to
same
say,
purses, but that's okay.
That's fine.
We just have the same
We have the
taste.
same stuff. Anyway, okay. So yes,
great.
Good observation, Catherine.
Someone named Taylor, male Taylor, agreed with you, Danielle, about the Williams-Sonoma aspect of porn and said that there is no better porn than food porn.
Yeah, that takes it further. I think food porn is a little more graphic than
Yes.
pots and pan porn, but I'm with Taylor.
I support that.
What about multi-poo porn?
Okay.
Ooh.
I not in a bad way, but just
There's a word for that.
Oh. Okay, we're moving on.
Well, speaking of Izzy, the two of you tweeted out the most adorable picture of Jordan with Izzy and the two of you.
Yeah, Izzy suddenly showed up at the party. That was funny.
Yeah.
She bolted into the room.
Right. She wasn't Was it a plan? She wasn't supposed to be there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She was
Anyway,
dropped off. Okay.
She Ubered over on her own.
She did, actually. She's going on a
She can work
vacation
the
without me.
app.
She's going on a road trip with her best friend, Antoinette, a French bulldog.
Adorable. Well, somebody named Chris felt that Jordan and Izzy had the same expressions on their face in the picture.
Which was totally true when you look at
Yeah, it is.
It's on our. I think it's on our Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
Slightly dismayed.
Serious.
Well, someone said that Izzy looked like she was now considering cleaning her room after being
It's
around
funny.
Jordan.
He was giving advice about how to train toddlers, and some of it applied to Izzy.
Well, you actually directly asked him what should you do, but it turns out he's a cat person, which honestly that's the thing that gives me most pause.
That's like the one
Zoe's
genuine.
Don't discriminate against
And he has this
Squash.
whole thing about petting cats.
Yeah,
What's
like
up
that's
with
one of his
that?
12th rule. Like when you see a
Yeah.
cat on the
No,
street,
I
pet
support it.
Man,
I don't know. Oh, okay. You go to Istanbul or any place where cats aren't really pets but are feral. You do not pet that cat on the street.
I don't
once
even.
got
And
attacked
even non-feral
in Turkey.
cats, they're all feral.
No, I
They're not on
showed
your
it
side.
An act of kindness, and it crashed my plate. As my daughter likes to point out, Miranda, who's been on this program, she says, cats, and this is true. Cats, if you die at home, they will eat you.
Oh my God.
Dogs will, yes, cats will eat you and dogs won't. Dogs will lie by your body and whimper.
See, that's why I feel like Squash is really a dog inside.
I think that Squash
Don't test this theory,
is a trans dog.
I do well because I've been sick this past week, and Squash doesn't really like to hang out with me at home most of the time if I'm there by myself. But I was sick in bed, and he stayed with me the whole time.
Yeah,
I think
it's
he
waiting for you to die. All right. Okay. But now what we really want to get onto, and if you're listening to this on Christmas morning, it's very probable you're having a politically incorrect Christmas.
Yes.
So many ways to go wrong.
There's so many. I mean,
Starting with the mistletoe. Okay.
Yeah, that's a bit aggressive,
No,
right?
no,
Like
it's
forcing. There's no
rape
consent.
culture. It's rape culture.
There's no consent with mistletoe.
Well, I don't know if you go and stand under it. Aren't you asking?
Well, no, but the whole point of mistletoe is you haplessly walk under it, and then some goofy guy grabs you and goes, "Oh, we're under the mistletoe," and then you have to submit to a kiss. But you actually did a factual feminist on this, and I mean everybody's talked about it, like the problematic "Baby, It's Cold Outside."
And
Carol.
it's so
Or
ridiculous.
it's not Carol's song.
There are those who say it is a rape anthem, that it is an ode to, sexual predation. And that's so ridiculous. The song is about two people. It's about mutual attraction and flirtation and seduction. Yes, it's old-fashioned.
But in a day where a woman was worried about her respectability.
Yes, and actually a very good feminist analyst took this look at it, and someone that has blocked me on Twitter. But she wrote an article where she just took from the song, she distilled the lines of the woman. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, she's actually just trying to overcome social pressure not to have
Right, she wants to stay, but she wants to be
But she's worried about her mother, her brother, her
You know what's a
aunt.
creepy song, though? And if this were struck from all, especially shopping malls.
God bless thee, merry gentlemen.
No. Oh.
There are issues there.
That is true. I was going to say Santa Baby.
Yes.
Is that
Santa
not
Baby.
the creepiest?
So creepy.
I don't even remember the
Oh, it's
words.
like this woman, and I think actually we have.
When was that written?
Oh,
Let me find out.
But you pulled an article which went through a lot of the sexism inherent in some of our traditions and favorite songs and movies. And yeah, this one, it is creepy. It's first of all, it's a woman having a sexual relationship with Santa, which just like,
That's her husband.
I can't unsee that.
Isn't that meant to be like it's
Maybe,
your
but then it's also like, I'm not going to kiss you so I can get a private yacht. It's very Stepford wifey, as this article said, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of, and also it's so annoying. It's
But
like
when
one of
was
the
it
most
written?
annoying.
1953.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
it's always
and who
done
wrote
that.
it?
I Oh, let me...
Because
It's done in that cloying baby voice. Ugh.
Yeah, I think it's the voice that unhinges me.
Santa baby.
Because it's, I think, and when other people cover it, I feel like it brings out the lyrics as being more creepy when you hear like modern artists covered it. Like Gwen Stefani does a cover of it that's just awful.
Ooh. Okay, well,
It's written by Joan Javits and Philip Springer. Sung originally by Eartha Kitt.
Yes, I'm the Eartha Kitt, and I love Eartha Kitt, and she is maybe one of the most seductive voices, but it's cloying and awful. Although there have been some, I thought, very funny, politically correct parodies of Baby It's Cold Outside.
Yes.
And maybe if our audio editor is listening, he could put a little excerpt in one of them now.
I really can't stay.
Baby, I'm fine with that.
I've got to go away.
Baby, I'm cool with that.
This evening has
Been hoping you get home
so
safe.
very nice.
I'm glad you had a real good
My
time.
mother will start to worry.
Call her so she knows that you're
And father
coming.
will be pacing the floor.
Better get your car.
So really I better scurry.
Yeah, no rush.
But here's the great thing, is that this, I mean, I don't know, people are going to have to keep this up, but it was, the song was dropped by several radio stations because one or two people complained. What really irritated me is that this fact-checking site, Snopes, that used to be wonderful, they've gone to the dark side, and now they're finding everything triggering. And they did an analysis and determined that the song legitimizes sexual entrapment. Yeah, they mutually entrap one another, okay? But they saw it as predation. And other places have, promoted this point of view. And USA Today had an irate article about how sexist the song was. So a lot of radio stations dropped it across the country in Cleveland, Denver, San Francisco. And then there was a listener uprising. And people demanded it be on, and several of the radio stations immediately organized polls. They could hear listener polls. And in Cleveland, like 95% of listeners wanted the song back. And now it's gone up, like number one on many sales lists. And so it's all backfired. And now the stations are bringing it back.
Yeah.
And so civilization...
There's only one thing to say to those people. Bah, humbug.
Yeah.
Well, this article has some suggestions for feminist Christmas anthems,
Okay.
including River by Joni Mitchell.
That's like depressing.
That's very...
So it's humorless, depressing.
You should just sit with your hot toddy
Why-
and cry into
why
your
would-
hot toddy.
Why is that
by
a Christmas
yourself.
song?
They said because it's against a, quote, quiet Christmas backdrop of reindeer and songs of joy and peace, that it is a Christmas song. They also made some suggestions of Christmas films that you could watch, and I don't really see these 2 out of the 3 I do not see as Christmas movies. Little Women,
Yeah, that's something you would watch. Yeah.
When Harry Met Sally.
They're just sort of old classics that
That's
you
what I'm
might
saying.
watch
They're not-
around. They said like they carry Christmas trees
Right.
twice.
It's like
in
the
that.
Die Hard argument.
Right.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yeah, yeah.
No, there's really only one Christmas movie, and it's
Hey.
called Miracle on 34th Street.
There's maybe a couple more.
I know it happened.
Life.
It's a Wonderful Life.
But yeah.
That's my favorite.
A Miracle on 34th Street is kind of modern because it dealt with a
Single
mother
mother, yeah.
and a very, smart little independent girl. And
Well, if you go back, I mean, in that era, those were a lot of films like that. And
okay, well, I did something to Christina over this past weekend, which was she had never seen, and this is like the modern classic, Love Actually.
oh, okay,
Okay, this is Zoe's favorite Christmas
all right,
movie.
it's your favorite.
But I remember.
Second to It's a Wonderful Life. Favorite
Okay.
modern Christmas.
Okay,
Okay.
can I speak freely?
No, in a second, because I got to set it up. Because I remember watching this when it came out, and I can't remember when it was, a while ago. And it's got like this stellar cast, obviously, of Hugh Grant and Emma Thompson and all these amazing people. And I remember just loving it. And then it's a lot of the scenes have become memes for love. And then I watched it, I don't know, 6 months ago, post Me Too. And I was genuinely horrified by
Okay,
all of the dynamics.
I went
and
to
then
watch
I made
it.
you, and then I
Made me
you had
watch
not.
it. I was
seen it.
prepared because you said there was like Me Too violations. There were no Me Too violations.
There was tons
There
of
were
Me Too
violations against just screenwriting. It was so irritatingly just sort of proud of itself and
Again, the word
cute
cloying. Yeah.
and cloying to a point that I actually had to leave the room. It was so, aren't we cute? Aren't we funny? Aren't we irreverent? Aren't we?
It was too in love with itself. No, okay, but let me count the ways that, and again, I'm not saying this is like some super feminist. I got very uncomfortable.
Okay, now she's going into her like
Super feminist.
radical, angry woman mode.
No, okay, Hugh Grant falls. He's the Prime Minister
Yeah.
of England, and he falls for his intern / assistant.
Yeah, I think she's an assistant.
An
She's there.
assistant.
Yeah, she's
but completely.
With no, absolutely. I mean, but this is part of the script. She had no personality, no character,
it was not
no
like
depth.
there was like she was this plucky girl, like she was just boring. And then Colin Firth, who's in the movie,
But she was no
falls in love. He falls in love with his housekeeper in Portugal,
who speaks no English.
who speaks no English. So like that's like a feminist cartoon, right? Like, I love you. You clean my house, and I don't have to talk to you.
It's kind of mail order bridey.
It was mail order bridey. Then the one working marriage in it, which was Emma Thompson and it's the guy
Alan
from
Rickman.
Star.
Alan
right?
Rickman.
The one functioning marriage that's sort of magical. He goes to this complete cliche and starts an affair with a younger woman in his office. And none of it worked out.
It was full of cliches. The politics are the least of it. It's just the fact that it, as you said, it was so pleased with itself.
Right.
And and there were some clever
There's a lot
lines
of cleverness in it.
and immense talent. And the worst movie, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I'm sorry. Go see it again.
Okay, moving on.
moving on.
Should Santa Claus be female or gender neutral?
My God, it's based on Saint Nicholas. Nicholas, a male. Well, he was.
Okay, here is a poll. A recent study, this has come from the BBC, by the way. A recent study has claimed that 27.8% of people, or so more than a quarter, in the U.S. and U.K. would prefer Santa to be either a woman or non-gendered. Of those, 10.6 say they want a female Santa, while 17.2 want the character to be gender neutral.
What if you want the character arrested and just removed?
This
from
intruder
society?
coming down my
out of
chimney,
my house.
stalking my children, telling them to be naughty or nice.
No, there's some dark things if you think about it. Like,
Yeah.
Maybe there could be a
Better than like a
fat
drunk-
shaming elephant. There could be a fat shaming element to this.
Oh.
But we should celebrate Santa, but maybe we can't celebrate him as a fat man.
well, I
We
think
could
we could
only
be. Santa could be
celebrate
trans forward.
How is
Whatever.
that?
I don't know. Just be a little androgynous, maybe. Move towards that. Better than what
About
they.
Mrs. Claus.
You know what's problematic is my nephews. My sister married a Dutch psychiatrist and lived there for many years with her children. And they have this holiday called Zwarte Piet. And like, you if you're a bad child, this Zwarte Piet comes to your house.
Oh, he's terrifying, right?
And it's sort of racist.
Isn't there? It's in
There's
other
a slave
cultures
boy.
too.
Isn't there a slave boy? Isn't that the one I'm thinking?
slave
It's
boy.
the Pennsylvania Dutch one, too.
Yeah, and they put coals under your bed, and they're all afraid of Zwarte Piet.
Right.
And I have like very liberal, bordering socialist. They're actually communist relatives, Dutch and all that. And I assumed they would have changed this holiday. No, Zwarte Piet is coming. I mean, what's up with that? So Santa Claus seems mild compared to.
Well,
Zwarte Piet.
this article from the BBC notes that in 2015, there was a viral video in which kids were asked whether a female Santa would be up to the job, prompting answers like no, because she'd get lost in the sky. I think, to be fair, if we're going to counter this,
Santa would not
ask for directions.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what the reindeer are for. She wouldn't.
That's what Rudolph is there for with his... Okay, speaking of Rudolph.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so there was an article in the Huffington Post, and I can't decide whether it was a parody or not.
You don't know.
He's problematic. I mean, he's bullied by the others, and the bullying is encouraged, including by Santa and the lead elf. And then his father, Donner, tells him, he creates a little cover for his nose, and he says, there are more important things than comfort, self-respect. And so it's now being questioned.
It's kind of an annoying song.
Oh, it's super annoying. But here's the thing.
Sorry.
Long before Me Too came along, I was watching this years ago with my kids. And it's the two people who created Rudolph also created Frosty the Snowman. And by the way, we can get into sizes and maybe a little with Frosty. Alan Rankin and Jules Bass were the creators of both of these amazing classics. They're both Jewish. And when I was watching it with my kids, I realized this is a metaphor for anti-Semitism. What's the problematic thing with Rudolph? His nose.
Oh, my God.
And he's bullied and he doesn't fit in. And yes,
He's smarter than everybody else.
he's smarter than everybody else.
Yeah.
And they tease him for his non-athletic ability. And then he gets sent to the land of the misfit toys, the ghetto.
Yeah.
But then he comes back and he saves the day. And maybe he's George Soros.
Well, I like that. I get it. I think, you know what?
Look, and we have to remember and pay tribute today to all, thank the Jews for all your Christmas carols, Christians.
Yeah.
The best
I'm
Christmas
dreaming
songs.
of a white Christmas. Best song ever.
Everyone is. Okay, so then the other thing, I don't know, Zoe, why you pulled this article, but it was why you shouldn't give alcoholic gifts to your female friends. Fortunately, it comes out of Scotland, so I don't know how much we have to worry about that.
And what's funny is the article about having a feminist Christmas, the last tip that they argued for was that you should get drunk so that you never have to have any of your responsibilities in the kitchen and that you can make other people
to go
do.
back to that feminist article, where was that in? That was
It was in the Telegraph.
The Telegraph.
That's an equity feminist tip. I agree with it.
It also said, why do you have to slave all day in the kitchen? And then the man comes in, and because it involves knives and digital dexterity, he
And
then
fire.
carves up the bird. So then they said, basically just get drunk and...
The exact quote is, if you get drunk, someone will have to pick up the slack while you dance to Madonna in front of your mother-in-law and scare the children.
I don't know that. I don't want mom's drunk again. I don't know that that's the reputation. Mom's too drunk to bring out the turkey. Anyway, okay. So this is from Scotland. It says alcohol-themed novelty gifts are frequently marketed to women, and they seem to love gin in Scotland. I didn't think gin is particularly Scottish, but like if you give a friend a pillow that says, "Come, let us adore gin." That's actually a pillow. There's those things you put on your, when you're trying to sleep, blinders on an airplane. It's not a hangover. It's wine flu.
Moving on.
No, well, I don't know. I think, I think you shouldn't give those just because of bad taste. There's something about. Have you ever been in those stores that are very, I want to say they're kind of targeted at middle-aged divorcees.
The wine mom.
They have all these horrible things to hang on your wall that make fun of your ex-husband or men in general. And I don't know why, but I think these pillows of drunkenness would do well in those stores.
Do you think that we are moving in that direction as human beings? The two of us?
The two of us.
I mean, I haven't seen these stores.
Those blousy women, and and they're filled with scented candles
and sort of aggressive pillows with
pillows and cat things, Zoe, cat things.
Cat things.
I don't collect the cat. I can't get into the cat products.
Filled with cat things and, things to literally, and fridge magnets that make jokes about men and wine.
Fridge magnets.
There's a new term in the dating world, like ghosting or whatever. It's called Scrooging. And Scrooging is defined as the act of breaking up with your partner to avoid spending money on their Christmas presents. So you break up just, late November, and because you've decided they're not worth enough to buy a Christmas present.
But isn't there an opposite where you hook up with somebody right around Christmas, some wealthy guy, so you get Christmas presents and you break up?
I don't know. That never worked for me. Let's take a short break, Christina.
I have some serious topics.
Oh, no. It's the holiday thing.
I
was
know.
going to suggest we take a short break and then come back and talk
New
about
Year's resolutions
New Year's
and talk about
just the New
Bertrand
Year's.
Russell and a theologian I adore at Princeton.
Okay. So we'll talk about...
Okay. You
Yeah.
seem...
No, we'll just come back.
Okay, we'll come
we
back.
finished with the politically correct Christmas portion of our podcast. Drink up, ladies. Throw out or return those alcohol-themed gifts that you receive. And then we'll take a break and come back and talk about the new year.
Please join the Femsplainers.
Yes, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or your favorite podcast hangout.
And follow us on Instagram at the Femsplainer Podcast.
And find the Femsplainers on Facebook and Twitter at Femsplainers.
And learn all about us at femsplainers.com. Thank you.
Be a Femsplainer.
I don't want to review our New Year's resolutions because I always make the same ones and I don't keep them. So
What are the same ones?
I don't know. Like
Drink less, lose 5 pounds. This is mine every year.
exercise,
I exercise.
be kinder. I'm always like looking for.
Take more time for you and learn to honor yourself.
Right. I don't have a problem with that. No, I always have these ambitions to just be a better person. And
But that's not like a New Year's resolution.
no, around
That's
New
like
Year's.
every day,
Yeah, every day I struggle. But I will say that one of the people who inspired me most was at a very young age, because my mother gave me the books of Bertrand Russell, his autobiography and the history of philosophy when I was in high school. And then I read, and maybe it was his article that he wrote called A Free Man's Worship.
I also love you're the kind of little girl or teenage girl go, thanks, Mom, and read it.
Yeah.
I can imagine many kids I could give that to and they would not.
Well, but
You're awesome.
He described his life passion, and I'm paraphrasing, and he was so introspective and so brilliant. I mean, he was the greatest philosopher of the 20th century, and one of the most just wonderful people. And I read just voraciously about his autobiography and what he thought and what he did and so forth. And he said that he lived for 3 things: for love, which gave him, he goes into great detail about how much.
He had a wonderful marriage.
No, he had 4 wonderful marriages.
Oh, okay, but he had a famous poem to his wife.
Yes, the last wife,
Okay, fine.
where he found true love. The first one was problematic.
Sometimes it's trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error 4 times. But he said that he lived for love, for the pursuit of truth, and to diminish in any way he could the suffering of mankind. So for kindness. So it was love, truth, and kindness.
It's a little grandiose.
No, well, he did.
I live to reduce the suffering of mankind.
No, he did. No, all right. I'm misquoting him. I'm misquoting him.
We're all on board with that. But how do you
he said
actually
it
do
better, and now you are denigrating him because of my paraphrase.
Oh, look who thinks he's
No, I'm going to say
saving mankind.
No, here's what he said. Just now, little miss, I'm correcting it. 3 passions, simple but overwhelmingly strong, have governed my life: the longing for love, the search for knowledge, and unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind.
What about his 3 previous wives?
Well, he actually, what's funny is he goes into his passions. And he said, these passions, like great winds, have blown me hither and thither in a wayward course, often an ocean deep of anguish, reaching the very verge of despair. I have sought love because it brings ecstasy. Ecstasy so great that I would often have sacrificed all of the rest of life for a few hours of this joy. Ooh.
I think I want something sort of more practically oriented.
No, I think I want that. I want that. I know what he's talking about. No, this is not.
How can I
this is the greatest thing.
More love and appreciation in my life.
No passion. No, he talks about. But anyway, my point is that
I'm just trolling you, Christina.
You're trolling me.
Totally trolling.
No, this should be the focus because you live for love and happiness.
Right.
You live to learn and understand, and then to be kind and effective. So I always come back to that, and I always measure myself. Am I doing that? I never am making it by any means, but my New Year's resolutions always reflect this book that I read in high school.
I think the fact that we all have the same resolutions every year, aside from I'm going to lose the 5 pounds or whatever. It's not a bad thing, because if you're always striving to be better, even for the same things, that's okay. I actually, by the way, I pulled an article about the most common New Year's resolutions for 2019. So this is from Scripps. 38% plan to make this their number one resolution, down from 41% focus on saving money. That's up 6% from 2008.
Oh, I've never been able to do that. Boring. I get it. I spend it.
Others, well, in this looming alleged financial crisis, that makes sense. Others will resolve to make new friends, 11%. Get a new job or hobby, 12%.
A hobby? What is a hobby?
It's a horse. I have a horse called Hobby.
Men have hobbies. Women don't.
I don't know. Women have tons of hobbies.
What is a hobby?
It's like knitting or gardening. That's not really. I think of gardening as an occupation. I don't think of it as a hobby.
Actually, my grandmother once stayed at my house, and she watched my husband, who was an obsessive philosopher. Oh, he only thought about logical algorithms, and she said, that man needs a hobby.
I think hobbies, that's an actually interesting question, because they must date back to pre-phones,
pre-everything,
right?
You needed a little pursuit.
Well, think when you read like 19th century books. I remember trying to read them aloud to the kids, or early 20th century, like Wind in the Willows. And it's so wonderful. But I realized I'd start editing as I was reading, because even though these little kids were totally gripped by the story, there would be long pages about scenery. And you would go, oh my God, they're not going to have the attention span for this. And it wasn't a statement on them. It was just that world where there were many, many, many hours in a day that you just
had to fill.
You had to fill.
Coin collecting.
Stamp collecting. I collected stamps.
Well, I should, for our definition of hobby, it is a pursuit outside one's regular occupation engaged in especially for relaxation. I feel like that's a pretty broad...
Yeah, but I think people now just go on their phones, right? And they have hobbies on their phones. They'll play games on their phones.
Games aren't hobbies. Hobbies, I think of
you're right.
Some little obsessive pursuit, collecting something, or I don't know.
Knitting, samplers. Okay.
Yeah, knitting could be.
Okay, so get a new job or hobby, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Find love, 7%. And a lot more folks, according to this, are resolving to travel, 24%.
Is traveling a hobby?
Well, no, this is just resolutions. That's more than the 18% who put it at the priority at the beginning of last year. So
I want to travel less.
You've been doing so many lectures. I want to travel more. Okay, but what's interesting is like exercise is not
a hobby.
Well, no. Would you get off the hobby train? These
hobby
are not
horse.
hobbies.
I'm on my hobby horse.
These are resolutions. Okay, but there is one state that is prioritizing exercise the most, and that's West Virginia. 80% of those surveyed put it at the top of their resolutions list. And you know what I did? I thought, what are the most obese states in the United States?
I didn't want to say it, but
And it
it's
turns
not a
out
bad hobby for West Virginia.
Virginia is number one. That 38% of the adults in West Virginia are obese. And it's literally number one in the United States, followed by Mississippi. So you go, West Virginians. Now we have to move on because you began this segment talking about somebody who had influenced you before we got on to Bertrand Russell. You said
Elaine Pagel?
yes.
Yes,
You didn't name her. You just
No,
said
because we were talking about Jordan Peterson, and I forget, why did I look up Elaine Pagel? Oh, I think it was by accident. I just was looking at some podcasts, and there was a lecture by her. Elaine Pagel is an amazing woman. She's a theologian at Princeton, a professor, a scholar. And I read about her in the 80s, and she was the kind of woman that was put on earth, to make us feel inferior. She was brilliant, but she had a charmed life, and I just always sort of felt envious, really. So then I listened to this lecture. I had no idea. She, in the course of a few years, her little boy, her child, at 2 years old, they were going off on a trip, but he had a slight heart defect, which had been corrected. But then they were about to go off on a trip, and he wasn't feeling well. They ended up in a hospital, and she recalls the doctor said to her, he has pulmonary failure, and it is incurable, and he has no more than a few months, maybe a few years to live. And he did live until he was 5, and they lived with his child, whom they loved. She was also married to the world's most handsome physicist, and they had this child. Well, they lose the child. They did adopt 2 kids. They were just desperate to have children. They adopt 2 children, and they're just trying to overcome their grief, impossible grief, but they have each other. They're in Aspen. He's a great hiker, and he dies on a hike.
How does he die?
Falling on a hike.
Gosh.
And she finds herself after this, these golden years and in best-selling books on Gnosticism and so forth. She finds herself with a 3-month-old and a 1.5-year-old living in New York City, and no husband, and this lost child.
In the space of 6 months.
Just a very, very small. Her life is. So she. I don't know.
How did she overcome this?
So that's the question, and
Did her faith help her? I mean,
yes.
You know what? Honestly,
so she had faith.
If that happened to me, I would probably lose all faith. Like, I don't know how faith gets.
Well, as she would say, she practically lost her mind.
Right.
What kept her?
Right.
She was very close to losing her mind. Obviously, wanting to end it all. How could you? But she had those 2 children, and she knew that her husband would want her to be there for them. He would have been for them. And so that gave her just some kind of something to save her, and she got through it. And she now has a memoir I think it's just come out, which is what was it called? Why Religion? And
definitely need her on the FIMS.
I think we need. I want to talk to her.
But your point in bringing her
my point in bringing her. Well, 2 things. One is
relating to New Year's, right? Like
relating to understanding other people and grateful. I think every day of your life you have to be grateful for and understanding how hard life can be for other people and how blessed you are with simple things you take for granted. We all get carried away with, I mean, I've seen people have meltdowns on airlines because the Wi-Fi isn't coming through, and they're furious. And
come on, that's a very serious
Actually,
problem.
I was the person that had the meltdown, all right? No, you have to put it, and here's the loss that she sustained, to me, it's unimaginable. Yeah. And yet, it was religion that got her through, this and helped her. She was reading Job a lot. And so it reminded me of Jordan Peterson because he talks about in his lectures and so forth, in a very gripping way, about how the biblical stories, Cain and Abel, or the story of Job, and just what incredible stories, the life-saving stories. She describes going back to Job over and over again, because he, this litany of misery and suffering and anguish, and then.
Well, that's the thing at this time of year. Obviously, like, it's nice to have the It's a Wonderful Life, literal wonderful life, Christmas, and have things to do on the holiday and New Year's Eve and things. But it's really, this is where I imagine suicide spike, depression spikes. And
I want anybody that's even remotely in that situation, read this book. It's a life-saving book. It's someone who's been through it. And it's even more perhaps just heart-wrenching, and the stakes are so high, and what happened to her was so impossible.
Well, actually, this didn't come out in our podcast with Jordan Peterson. Again, there were so many things to ask him about, but one of his original inspirations was reading like World War II literature, other literature like gulags, concentration camps. The people who were good and survived and maintained hope even in the worst circumstances. And he became fascinated. And this really was the inspiration for the 12 Rules, is how do you, we also didn't talk about this, but he is a huge depressive. Mm-hmm. His father was a depressive, like depression runs in his family. And so he was looking for the way that he thinks the default condition of most people is suffering, that you are always walking this line between chaos and order. And that's why he became fascinated in how even in the most extreme circumstances, people survived. And
somebody asked him if you could recommend one book to someone, what would it be? And he immediately said Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl was in concentration camps, lost everyone. Mm-hmm. But he was able, in this book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is sold, and it's like always a bestseller. I don't know if it still is, but in college I read it, and it was for years on everyone's list of the must-read books. But one of the things he did is even in the completely horrendous, catastrophic situation of a camp, there was some goodness.
Right.
It was kept alive. There was humor. There, and he would just hang on.
Sharing. There were the people who weren't stealing your stuff.
Yeah, there was the worst and the best. I meant to ask. I regret not asking him. When I was teaching philosophy, I ran across a book by a philosopher, Philip Haley, "Lest Innocent Blood Be Shed," and Philip Haley, like Peterson, was studying. Because Peterson talks about how he had studied the Holocaust and the Gulag, and Haley had done the same thing. He actually was becoming, he was getting depressed at man's inhumanity to man, at depravity, and then he decided. And one day he was just reading a little article, and it was about a little town in central France called Le Chambon, LechamBon, which was the safest place in all of Europe for a Jew. Mm-hmm. And it was a Huguenot. They were Huguenots, French Protestants. But it became known among, Jews. You could go, and you would go there, and they would save you. Now, and so he decided that he wanted to study, the architecture of goodness. He didn't want to look at evil anymore. What happened in Le Chambon? And if we could capture that, if we could understand that. And this book, Lest Innocent Blood Be Shed, is about what he found. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he found is that the people there were so hospitable.
Yeah, so, like why this one town?
I think it had to do with a very charismatic preacher, minister. Mm-hmm. It had to do that they were Protestants in a Catholic country, so they had a tradition of being, outcast.
Understood what it was.
They understood what it was. But what Haley said, the most important thing, is they were open and hospitable and kind, and it wasn't like these refugees would come in and will you take us? And they would begrudgingly say, oh, all right, because that would happen in Switzerland. And it turns out that like the survivors of Le Chambon bear none of the, the sort of traumatic after effects of Jews who, stayed in Switzerland or stayed in places where they were resented. They were loved because they just had an openness and a caringness, and somehow it happened. And I think we have to
realize what we just did.
Oh, God, what?
We brought Christmas back to the persecution of the Jews.
Oh.
This is like being at Chinese food dinner.
Okay. Let's not get into that.
Here is, since this is the last podcast of season 2, obviously wishing all of our Christian friends Merry Christmas. Everybody else have a peaceful, wonderful New Year. We have some thank yous to AEI, where we record every week the podcast, Entertainment One, that carries the podcast. Our sponsors, Scentbird.
Yes.
Brooklinen.
And new sponsors on the way in.
HelloFresh. And more sponsors. We have Zoe Appler in the studio.
Zoe.
She's here every week putting up with us and
I love it.
weighing in. And from her millennial, actually Generation Z. Gen Z perspective. We have Nat, who does the audio and all the video clips you see on social.
Thank you, Nat.
We have our listeners who we love, and thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for reaching out to us. And why don't you make a pitch? Like the best gift is to subscribe to the Fems.
Please subscribe and follow us on Twitter. We need more followers. I want my followers. How many do I have now?
I like in the 250,000 at least.
No, I don't know.
Anyway, yes.
Okay, well, whatever number.
To follow us, like
260, almost 270,000. Why don't they follow us on Femsplainer?
Right, every single one of you.
There's some resistance. Okay, all of you, 268.5. You would think they would show a little.
Where are you? You'd think you'd show up?
Yeah.
You'd think you'd show up?
What's it?
I think our Femsplainer's New Year's resolution should be to get some merch. Like some
you know what?
Merch. Would you guys buy merch?
There's another podcast, 2 Psychologists, 4 Beers.
Yeah.
And their listeners send them exotic beers.
We can do, well, now
we don't
you're
want
asking
beer.
for people to send us stuff, which we, by the way, always love as long as it's nice. No, we should, okay. My resolution, cups, T-shirts.
No, I don't want cups and T-shirts. I want
our listeners.
Not like
I can't
tumblers,
brand wine.
like some nice wine
We
glasses.
could do wine. We could do wine tumblers. Mm-hmm. I know where you can get those. Okay, so that will be a little bit of my resolution. That's on me.
What? Oh, you're going to have Femsplainer cups and T-shirts.
Yeah.
I thought you were asking people to send.
No.
Like, don't.
Christina, you've had too much Dubonnet.
No, I haven't.
Time now to enjoy your Christmas day, and thank you, everybody, and have a great holiday.
I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my toes. Christmas is all around me. And so the feeling grows. It's written in the wind. So everywhere I go. So if you really love Christmas, come on, let it snow. This is shit, isn't it?
Yep, solid gold shit, Maestro.